Hey, hey guys, welcome, welcome. So today I am so excited to be speaking with Jonathan Carone. So he is at Healthy Sports Parents on Instagram, and he might be the sanest fucking person in the world right now. Like that. So I'm so happy because funny enough, Jonathan, I just did a post. Well, I'll jump in. I'll save that for a minute. Why don't you introduce yourself and how you even started this Instagram page? Because I'm assuming you've been a coach, you have kids.
Yeah, so thanks for having me. So my bachelor's degree is in sport management with a minor in coaching, and then I have a seminary degree in student ministry. So I've been around kids and sports and all that, like vocationally and all of that. Yeah, and so did some coaching when I was in college, and then went away from it for the longest time. My kids started playing a few years ago, and the bug came back. Started coaching again. But what led to the platform? There's really two stories. I'll try to say them quickly. But one of them was a couple years ago. We were at a 7 and 8 year old YMCA basketball game
Hmm.
on a Saturday morning at 8:30 in the morning, and these parents were flipping out. And I went home and made a hoodie that said "Youth sports are not about winning," and I wore that to every game the rest of the season. And then that was January 24. November 24, my daughter went to a soccer tournament. She plays recreation soccer. End of the year, they did this end of season tournament just to challenge themselves. And after one of the games, I saw a dad on the sidelines. He was yelling at his daughter to the point that daughter leaned into mom crying and dad continued yelling. And I had sympathy for the girl, but I tell people all the time I had empathy for that dad because I could look at him, I could tell his background just from looking at him, where the team was from and all this. I knew he didn't wake up that morning saying, Jamie, you know what sounds fun today? I want to make my daughter cry on the side of a soccer field. That sounds like it'd be a blast. I know
Right,
he didn't do that.
right.
Had my life gone a few different ways, and I not had some training I've had or some experiences I've had. My dad was the dad that I had to yell at in the middle of a fifth grade basketball game to shut up on the sidelines because he was yelling at me so much. I just have this overwhelming belief that most parents want to do better. They've just never been taught how. So I went home, asked some people, like, hey, what do you think about this? I'd done some other podcasts in the past, and they're like, yes. So I reached out to some friends, recorded 7 episodes, and released the first episode January 8th of 25. 2 weeks later, I did an Instagram reel, just straight to camera, the stuff you see me do every day.
Yep, the talking heads, yep.
And that video got 6 million views in the course of a couple weeks. And I went from nothing to 25,000 followers on Instagram in 2 weeks.
Wow.
And so that instantly put it, I'm like, okay, maybe this is something. And
Yeah.
so did 2 seasons of the podcast. Within a year, I was at 135,000 followers across social, and I'm up to almost 150 now, like 14 months into this. It, I say all that not to brag on myself, but to show that
Brag. We need you.
I,
Brag.
I really do think most parents want to do better. They just haven't been taught how. So if
Sure.
those of us who know better can teach in an empathetic way and not in a critical or judgmental way, I think there's an audience out there for people who want to learn.
Yeah, I think so, guys. I didn't say this after I said he's healthy sports parents, but we're talking about youth sports and what a clusterfuck it's become because it has just become awful. So my son will be 20 this year, and he is. I coached. I did not know anything about baseball. I was a musical theater circus performer. Never was vocal. I was very vocal about hating baseball. And then my son turned out like kind of prodigy behavior, like 2 years old, hitting a ball with a bat reliably. I only knew this because people were telling me. I could care less. I never looked for that kind of behavior. Had to take him out of T-ball because he was so obnoxious to the other kids because he was like, "You're not focusing." I was like, "Oh my God, my kid's a nightmare." But when he started Little League, I had to coach, right? Because I'm the person, if I see it being done poorly, I can do it better. So I started to coach. I got some older guys to handle the baseball. I handled managing the kids. We had to put up signs. Like there's a sign now you can buy that says something like, just a reminder, your kid's not going to be on the Yankees. This isn't the Yankees. This isn't the Red Sox. I'm in New England. This is kids playing. Everything you say will affect their self-esteem. Like to remind parents. And one of the things I would do is I'm sassy as all can be. So if parents started,
Really?
you've learned this in 3 minutes, right? when parents started to yell at their kids or yell at me, I would stop the game, whole timeout, and I would make them coach third base. I was like, get on my field. Like, you're not pulling this from the sidelines, trying to denigrate the whole game. But that was 14 years ago, and it's only gotten worse. And I think one of
Mhm.
the most impactful things I heard you say was, this is $1 billion industry, targeting parents for not doing enough for their kids, something to that effect. And I was like, that's exactly what this is. And it reminds me of social media. The kids don't want it. They know it's wrecking them, right? The parents don't want it. They know it's wrecking the kid, and everybody's afraid that they'll be left out if they're not doing it.
Yeah. So I part of what all my stuff is centered around is this idea that we, as human beings, so every single one of us, we have this desire for self love and self glory.
Mm-hmm.
Self love meaning we want other people to like us. Self glory meaning we want other people to think we're good at what we do. And that goes back to the cavemen, because I want you to like me and to think I am valuable, so that when the cavemen from the other cul-de-sac come over the hill into our cul-de-sac, you're going to fight for me. Like, that's a natural human thing. But where it goes off the rails is when we think other people will like us or think we're a better parent because of our kids' performance in sports or the things we're providing them in sports.
Yes.
And so there is this massive FOMO that goes on, that if Timmy, Tommy, and Johnny down the street are doing private lessons and we're not doing private lessons, then am I not as good of a parent as they are? Or if so, I'm having to have a conversation with a player's parent who I have coached in youth soccer before. Um, my son and a couple of kids that have been on our team, we live in a small town, so small that we have to play co-ed soccer. We don't have enough to split girls and boys.
Okay.
And so these couple kids are slightly advanced. So please don't hear me that I'm saying my kid's super great. My kid's just a giant, and he needs a little bit of a challenge. So we're going to move up from U10 to U12 a season early. There's another boy who's been with us for a few seasons who I think has the potential to be the best athlete of this group of five, but he's highly ADHD. And at the end of last season, he just started, like, things started clicking. The discipline, the focus, that started clicking. I'm afraid if we move him up a season early, it's going to be too much when he needs a season where he can dominate and have confidence building.
Sure.
And so I have to have a conversation with mom or dad, probably dad, that says, hey, your kid's welcome to move up with us. If he wants to. I think what's best for him is to stay in U10 for a season and be the best player he can absolutely be. I'm fearful mom and dad will think I'm saying their kid's not as good, which, that's like, you can hear me. That's not my intention. Like, I think he can be the best athlete of all of them.
Yeah.
He's just 9, Jamie.
Yeah.
And kids grow differently at 9. And so we have this feeling, if my 9-year-old is not as good as the other 9-year-olds, and that's something about me as a parent.
Right.
And so what has happened is you've got a small minority of coaches and clubs who have seen, hey, there's some money to be made here. If I offer this, this, and this with all these promises, there's parents that'll pay for it. And so when we are leading out of fear and parenting out of fear, when that self-love and self-glory gets in the driver's seat instead of hanging
Mm-hmm.
out in the back seat, it takes us places that we end up yelling at 9-year-olds on the sideline of a soccer field or a baseball field. And we do things that no other place in our life we would think is a sane thing to do. But for some reason, we justify it because sports are involved.
Yeah, and I think it is I've been really thinking about this recently, that it's so unconscious, because like you said, no parent sets out to do it, and no parent I know people who are letting their kids play, hiding concussions because they want their kids
Mm-hmm.
playing. I'm like, your kids already had 4 concussions. Like, they're not supposed to be on the field, but it's like this drive, and they would never think that they were hurting my
If
kid.
their kid had an ankle, a sprained ankle,
Yeah.
or God forbid, a broken ankle, they'd hold them out.
Yeah.
But because it's a brain injury, we justify these stupid things that no. Let me give you an example, because I think I can make it even more human than that. I was texting with a friend of mine this past weekend, who I have known this guy since I think fifth grade. We grew up together. His son is 13 years old, plays travel soccer. They had a tournament recently, and my friend told me he caught himself yelling at a 13-year-old boy on the other team in the middle of the game. What happened? It was a corner kick. My friend saw this player on the other team running at his son to knock his son down, not play the ball. So he yelled at the kid, play the ball, not the kid. Like, but he yelled at a 13-year-old boy. My first text back was, Will, you remember in seventh grade when we were playing all-star basketball and that kid knocked you in the wall? And he goes, you mean when he threw me in the wall at 40 miles an hour? I was like, yeah. Like, so in that moment, not
You
only
can't
were
hurt
you
kid.
trying to protect your son, but your brain and your body remembered another child throwing you into the wall that broke your wrist.
Right.
And so you reacted not only out of the protection, but also out of past experiences that made you do something that you knew you shouldn't do and that you immediately regretted. But it was
Sure.
such a human thing
It's like
in
your
that
lizard
moment.
brain took over and your
Yeah.
old fear. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And so, like, it happens because whether we realize it or not, these sports fields with these kids playing these sports pretty badly bring up all these insecurities
Yes.
that we don't even recognize. It's like, why am I so invested in 7 year olds playing basketball at 8:30 in the morning at the YMCA?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, I'll tell you a human story. So I'm 57, and at I think it was my 25th high school reunion or 30, I don't know at this point, but we were out to dinner, and I was kind of sitting back observing people. And back in my day, you were a nerd, you were preppy, you were a theater kid or a band kid. And if you were sports, you were not smart. If you were smart, you didn't do sports. Like it was very divided like that, very Breakfast Club stereotypes. And I'm watching all the nerds brag on their kids' athletic prowess. And then I'm watching all the sports guys brag about their kids' intellectual prowess. And I was like, oh, you're all just like, you don't even realize it. Like you're trying to, and I think we're all like that. It's that human thing that you're talking about. We don't recognize it because it's so primal. Yeah.
it's there are so many emotions that go on within us that we don't even realize are going on as they're happening.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I've got this saying that, because like I'm a bald bearded white guy with tattoos. So it's like you don't see me and expect me to be talking about mental health and counseling and those things. And 15 years ago, I wouldn't have been that person. But I had some experiences and went through some counseling, and it's like it made me realize that so much of this stuff is baked into us that we don't realize is going on. And so, what I ask people is like, you say you'll do anything to help your kid be successful, right? Will you do the work on yourself to figure out why you're reacting these certain ways, or why you have that belief? I'm not even telling you that your belief is necessarily wrong,
Fucking
but do
Coach
you?
Jonathan is dropping truth bombs all like this is taking a delightful turn that I didn't know we were gonna take. You're
But
so
but do
right. Would you
but
do the work
do
to
you
why you're
know
reacting?
do you even know why you believe this?
Yep.
Like, I did a reel today saying that, like, I get in my comments all the time people saying that we have to toughen our kids up for the real world or else they'll be soft. And I'm like, no, the world is hard enough. What you need to do is show your kids an unwavering, unchanging amount of love that is not dependent on their performance or anything that they do, so that when the world does get hard, they're not also trying to earn your approval and your love.
Yes.
Because how many people in your life have you seen into their 50s, their parents are dead and gone, and they're still trying to earn the approval of mom and dad through what they're doing? Like,
Yes.
that's not a healthy place to be. So,
Yes.
what if these 12-year-olds, we can show them as they're going through puberty and their life is a mess and their hormones are a wreck? What if we could show them that we love them no matter how they perform? Whether they score all the goals or they give up 17 or they strike out, or like, what if our love for them doesn't change? Like, what foundation does that build as
Yeah.
they grow up? What self-image does that give of themselves? Like, how many stupid things do we do as teenagers because we want people to like us?
That's what I try to explain to people. Like, you do you remember being a teenager? It's about fitting in. Like the you know the whole thing. Well, if your friends jumped off a bridge, would you? Yeah, of
A lot
course
of
I would. Like,
I would think it was
gladly.
stupid the entire time, but
Yeah.
it's like I think every generation is guilty of this. So you're a little ahead of me, but like your generation thinks my generation is soft. And so my generation thinks the generation like it's a natural part of growing up because we have different experiences. But
Yes.
but what we don't realize is like the things that are hard for kids, they are totally different than the things that were hard for us.
Yes.
Like there is like it's so easy to say that kids today are soft because they're scared of failing. But when we were growing up, our circle of comparison was only the other kids at our elementary school.
That's what I was going to say, because a lot of this softness, so I did see your reel today. A lot of the what's happening is we have to look at it as the long game. And there were about 15 years here where that gentle parenting took over,
Hmm.
misconstrued as permissive parenting. So it's not that parents were giving kids what they thought was unconditional love, but what it was a lot of pandering. No,
Hmm.
you didn't. The only reason you struck out is because the pitcher was terrible,
Right.
and the coach didn't let you. So we explained it away in a way that didn't build resilience. And like for me, when I was coaching even my son, not my love was never on the line, but he'd say, oh, I'm so disappointed. Okay, well, why were you disappointed? What would you have done differently? Okay, let's go eat dinner. That was a game. Like, let's move
Yeah.
on. But I never made it somebody else's fault. And so I think we're recovering from that. And now people are like, oh, we've got to be harder. But like you said, there's all these other things that have shaped parenting, which is too much social media, too much information. So
Well,
they
like, what I was going to get, the comparison circle is so much bigger.
Right,
Like even kids today with travel ball.
right,
So you're no longer playing just little league with the kids in your town. So where you're like, how good of a baseball player am I is considered around the kids that are in my elementary school. Now at 8 years old, you're traveling 2 hours away and playing teams from this giant circle. So like the comparison gap is so much bigger. So if you fail, it feels so much bigger.
bigger, yeah.
And so as parents with social media, we see all these other parents doing like we see Pinterest and we see these like people doing recipes on and it's like I don't have the energy. Like a good example. We do those meal in a boxes where you like they send you all the
Sure.
ingredients and you cook them. One night my wife was like, I don't want to clean up so that we can cook just to clean up again. Let's go pick something up. Like
Right.
we knew the meal was there and like we had a recipe that was made for us by people
Right.
who knew what they were doing. But it's like, I'm tired. I don't want to clean up last night's dinner.
Right.
And so it's like we feel bad about doing that because then you jump on social media and you see these people who are portraying
Yes.
a perfect lifestyle. And you start feeling like you're not as good of a parent because you had a human moment. And it's like there are reasons and there are excuses. And let's talk about the reasons so that we don't have to make excuses. Because when we understand what's actually going on, then we can adjust and do things out of that instead of making excuses for why things didn't go our way. And it's a fine line, and we're going to get it wrong. But the more we try, the more we'll get it right.
Yeah. When do you think so? Let's see, my niece and nephew, they're twins. They're 27 now. And I remember I feel like travel sports had just kind of started when they were in high school. And I was vehemently against travel sports with my own son because I watched my brother's family get ripped apart. They went two different directions. They suddenly had to eat dinner in the car. Neither one of these kids showed any, like they were regular players. Do you know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean? So and we'll get to the scholarship myth in a minute, but like there weren't now they didn't have any starter job. They didn't work because they couldn't work because their lives were
Mm-hmm.
devoted to this expensive travel team. family dinner at a time when teenagers really need to connect with parents, where everything was thrown to the wind. And I was like, I'm not doing that. So my own son, when he turned 13 and it was time for Babe Ruth, I said, you're not, all his friends were doing a travel team. And I said, we're not doing a travel team, not till you're 15. Sorry, I'm not doing it. I'm not ripping apart everything right now. When did that take over? Because I feel like that's the travel team now is a higher level, which makes people have to go take their clinics, which then ends up with year-round specialization, which I was watching preteens blow out their rotator cuffs because they're not supposed to pitch the way parents have them in pitching clinics through the winter. So when did it grab hold? Because again, there's so many other team opportunities, theater, band, all these things in school. And all of a sudden I turn around and I was like, everybody's sporty spice over here. Even like, when did that happen?
Oh, before I get to that, I want to put one thing. I want to put a pin in. I want to come
Okay.
back to the relational aspect of travel sports because I think there are ways to leverage it
Okay.
so that if you go that route, you do it in a healthy way. So I'm not completely anti-travel sports.
Okay.
I just think we need to do it differently.
Okay. I'll
To answer your
mark it down.
question, though, I'll try to give a history lesson here as quickly as I can. In the 90s is really when travel sports started. Or started gaining popularity. You can trace them back to like the 60s and 70s, but they
Mhm.
really started gaining popularity at your younger middle school and high school ages in the 90s, to the point that it was truly an elite level. It was the best player from this town with the best player of that town, and they formed these teams. I remember I had a neighbor who was on one of the first AAU baseball teams around me. Um, every kid on that baseball team in seventh grade went on to play in college or professionally. So it was truly the best of the best. So you've got these kids that like that group graduated high school '02 to '06. Let's say that realm. And so many of them went to college and played. And so you see this next generation of parents, they're like, well, those kids played travel and they went to college. So if my kid wants to play in college, they got to play on this travel team. So if the truly elite kids left first, let's call them the Division 1 players, the kids who are going
Okay.
Division 1, your next group of kids who may have played Division 3 or may have just been like varsity all conference, they start leaving. And so there's another level of kids in these clubs. They say, all right, well, we've got these parents willing to pay us. So we have let's call it the gold team and the silver team. So we'll
Okay.
have a gold team and a silver team. And so this is that 2002 to 2012 range is when
Gotcha.
you start. It's still pretty exclusive, but more kids are doing it. Those kids end up maybe getting some scholarships as well or
Okay.
having whatever. And so the next level down, they start leaving to go to travel. And so now we're in that 2010, 2015 range, and we've got A level, B level, C level. We've just now called it elite, national, and gold so
Okay.
that everyone feels good and it's not
Right.
gold, silver, bronze. And so the piece of this that is unspoken a lot of times is the parents of those three levels of kids were most often the ones who were the best equipped to be solid coaches in the sport.
Okay.
So when those top level kids and their parents who were the coaches leave the rec league becomes a lower quality of play. And moms like Jamie who don't know the game see it done poorly, and they're either having to step in and fill the gaps or just doing it so you have a chance to play. So the level of play and the quality of play goes down. So now your fourth level of kids see we could go travel together. We could put all these boys together under like the one coach we have left and go do a travel team. And so that takes another layer away. And so now we're up to 2016 and 2020. So we're in there. Then COVID hits and the local little leagues all they can't take on the responsibility and the liability, but kids still want to play. And there were these spin-off organizations in basketball and baseball and soccer who would continue playing. So everyone leaves the rec league in 2020 to form these little travel teams. And so the quality gets even worse in a lot of places. So what you have is a really 30-year confluence of events that now if you live in an area with a large middle school or high school, because let's also add in consolidation of schools. So you don't have neighborhood schools anymore. You now have these big, giant 3,000 person high schools in some areas. Well, there's still only 18 spots on a baseball team.
Right.
So your high school class may have 700 boys in it, but there's only room for 9 of them to be on the varsity baseball team.
Right.
So if we know that, then we know the competition for middle school is pretty fierce. And so if everyone else is specializing in doing this, we're afraid that our kid's not going to be ready for middle school to make that team in 7th grade. So we have to start even younger. So through like you just got a different perspective on understanding the history of it.
Yeah.
Like there's so many things that have gone into this that you can't just pinpoint that thing is why it's happening.
Sure.
There's
No,
been
and that makes
systemic
sense
change.
because my son was like, let's say, because he was born in 2006, so we're talking about 2012, 2013. And we actually, so he was 9, and he wanted to try soccer. I said, yeah. Well, I asked around him, but he's like, he's washed up. You can't start soccer at 9 years old. And I was like, what? So couldn't find anything. So went to a rec league, which suited me fine. The problem was my son did have athletic ability. It wasn't even fair to the other kids. Like he was slamming the game. I was like, you can't, that's not fair either. But then he was washed up for the travel league. There wasn't a place for him to just play. And so that makes a lot of sense that like those parents that would have been good coaches, or adept
and
coaches.
and the kids who would have been really good rec league players and had a really great time with their neighborhood friends wanted a little bit more of a challenge. So they banded together and went to like the C tier, D tier travel team. Like in North Carolina, travel soccer, there's 3 or 4 divisions. So like there's like, but depending on where you're at, you're still traveling up to an hour on a weekend to play. Um, and so a lot of those kids that would have been the best rec league players are now on these lower level travel teams. So there can be more competition. And the gap, there are 2 gaps that we have right now in the youth sports space. One of those is what people kind of title the rec plus.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to go travel, but you want a little bit more competition,
Mm-hmm.
which in soccer in North Carolina, that's that lowest level of
Sure.
classic. And then the piece of it that I think is the hinge point to this entire conversation is high school intramurals.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you remember, you may have been on the tail end of this, but high schools used to offer intramural sports to anyone who wanted to play. It'd be right after school or even during
Yeah.
lunch,
Oh yeah.
where anyone who wanted to play could play. Do an 8-week season of basketball, do an 8-week season of slow pitch softball or flag football, whatever. And there were these leagues that were a part of the school that you did. You didn't have to go anywhere. You played other friends. It was competitive because you were all buddies and you wanted to beat your
Right.
classmates. So there was a level of competition, but it was open to anyone. So the kids who didn't make varsity or JV still had a place to play. So there wasn't this pressure of if I don't make the school team, I don't have anywhere to play unless I join this travel team. There was still a high quality rec league, but in the late 80s, those all started getting defunded. And Parks and Rec departments across the country have been defunded 50 to 70% of what they were in the 80s. And so we don't have these school or community leagues in a lot of places for teenagers. So the only place to play is the varsity team or JV when you get to high school, and there's only room for 10 to 12 kids in that. So the
Right.
pressure is so much higher. If we had the intramural or rec leagues in high school and we didn't look down on kids for not
Yeah.
being great, then this whole thing I think could change. But that's my soapbox.
I feel like if we're gonna make everybody be sporty spice, we have to make room for people who aren't good at it. I wouldn't. I was a circus performer, but I can't throw a ball to save my life. Like I, I would enjoy
But
playing, but
so think about it. Teenagers are the only group of people that we say have to earn their spot on a team because up until middle school, there's rec leagues for everybody. And once you get to college, there's intramurals for everybody. And in college, it's okay if you don't. There's a competitive level of intramurals, and then there's a rec level of intramurals where you may have never played softball before in your life, but they're like, if you're the kid that wants to go play on a slow pitch softball team, there's a spot for you. You might get riddled a little bit. You might get, there's jokes there, but you're welcome and you're not looked down upon if you want to play flag football for the first time. But it's that 13 to 18-year-old range that we say, no, you got to earn your spot, because in the
Right.
real world, you got to earn your spot. There's not participation trophies for everybody in the real world. And so it's the hardest part of a kid's life,
Yeah, that
the most
sucks. I never
insecure
thought of
part
that.
of a kid's life. We tell them they have to earn their spot.
Yeah.
And it is because of the systems that we have created around them and the culture we have created around them that doesn't allow kids to just play for the sake of play.
All right, let's go back to your pin, the
Okay.
relational aspect
I'd already forgotten
of
about it.
I write it down. The relational aspect to travel sports.
So yeah, like there's good and bad with everything, right?
Oh, yeah.
And you've seen travel sports tear families apart and go different directions. And I've seen divorces happen because of it. I've seen families go into financial, like credit card debt, trying to pay for it. So there are the stories of how terrible it can be. But
I've
there's
heard good
also some.
stories on Instagram.
I
I've heard
was, I
like
was, I was, I was saying
families that are sporty and it bonded. They all went
there
together. They
there.
all traveled together.
I've heard so many stories of conversations in cars
Mm-hmm.
and dads and daughters bonding over a Chick-fil-A sandwich at 2 o'clock in the afternoon after a game. I've heard stories of families finding their best friends that the parents are still friends once the kids stop playing. They still go on vacations together. And so there is a great side to travel sports depending on your family and depending on the way you're wired. My wife is an oncology nurse. She's an introvert. By the time Friday rolls around, she's exhausted. So to have to go somewhere the entire weekend would not be good for her.
Right.
So if our kids continue playing soccer into late middle school and high school and they decide they want to go more competitive, we'll make it work. But right now, it's like to do that 9 months of the 3 month spring season and the 3 month fall season of us being split is hard enough on my wife already.
Yeah.
And so to do that 9 months of the year, like there's a tension between like we want to provide for our kids, but one of the best ways to provide for the kids is for mom and dad to be healthy.
Right. I think
And so
that's what I fear for most people is that gets left out of the equation or what might be right for the family because a lot of times it's your first kid that you're sending out to do everything and then the second kid or third kid gets dragged to
right,
something, so
or they feel
that's
like
where
they don't
is
get their turn, or
right,
like
right.
I've got an episode of the Healthy Sports Parents podcast coming out in late April or early May where we talk about all like how to know you're ready to go from rec to travel. Like we did an entire
Okay,
conversation on the things
good.
to think through and all that, because it's not as easy as, well, my kid wants to be challenged, or rec is too easy for my kid.
Yeah.
There are so many layers and dynamics that families like they get into it without thinking about it, and then it's like, holy crap, this is something different than I thought it was.
Yeah, and that's what I really stress for my audience is I think a lot of parenting right now is like that. It's just so reactionary. It's just do the next thing and not thinking of the long game. And so, it is
Because we're exhausted, Jamie.
I
Like
know.
we're balancing so much.
I
There's so
know.
there like I don't know that there's ever been more asked of parents than what is being asked of parents right now. And there's 1,000 different reasons why, but parents are exhausted. Like the idea of, I mean, the majority of families are both parents working. That wasn't the case 30, 40, 50 years ago. Like both parents didn't have to work 40, 50
I'm
years
gonna
ago in order.
argue. I'm gonna argue that point because I was actually just about to do a reel where I was like, "Stop using work," because they did though. Like the middle class and the working poor. So my mother worked two jobs, and so I feel like yes, both parents are working, but I also feel like this is one of my things is like be careful about sports because sports is going to eat you alive. It's going to eat you alive. And that's another, like, if we're looking at a mom with a heavy mental load, the uniform, the schedule, the snacks, like all of that. Now, birthday parties are a whole big thing. But for so many parents, I really think a lot of the exhaustion is their fears of not being good
And
enough.
for the when I was saying pre 1980,
Yeah.
so like pre 1980, the 80s are when the both families
No, 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 no,
Both
no. I just did a deep dive.
is it
50s and
is it
60s were the heyday. 50s and 60s were the
so it
two
was the 70s?
decades, were
Okay.
the only 2 decades where moms there were stay-at-home moms, that where that was a norm. Yeah. Even prior
I
to
was 10
that,
years off.
moms worked outside of the home. Then 70 to 95 to 2000 was 75% of moms were working outside the home. Then that sort of leveled off in the 2000s and started to decrease with a lot of stay-at-home dads.
What is it
that
now?
that now it's similar. It's about maybe 60, 65 to
Okay.
70%. Yeah.
Okay.
But what flipped was more stay-at-home dads, and I witnessed that in my business right around 2016 was the switch, where moms went back to the workforce, were making more money, and the dad was like, well, I might as well stay home now. But the thing is that, like, we've created a fast-paced society, and I'll give
Yeah.
you a very small example. I'm in Rhode Island. We just got 3 feet of snow in a blizzard. That happened. It stopped snowing Monday at 4 o'clock. By Tuesday morning, people were bitching that the roads weren't clear, they couldn't get to work, their kids needed to get to school, and I was like, do you know how hard it is to remove 3 feet of snow from an entire
Right.
state? So we're in this hustle culture where parents feel like they have to do more. So, like, for me in my work, I'm trying to tell parents, be very cautious of what you add in, because like you said, a travel team, I can't wait for that episode, by the way, but there's bigger things here. Is it going to
Hmm.
be more exhausting? If it's already exhausting getting dinner on the table at night, like, if that's a Herculean task. And moms in particular, I feel like their solution to overwhelm is to overwork. I can outwork this.
Hmm.
If I add more, my kid will be okay. I also think that sometimes parents like a coach taking their kid for an because they just got home from work,
Well,
and
so
like practice can serve as
that's
a
the other piece of it, because like with travel ball, you pay a coach to do it.
right.
With rec leagues, it's volunteer coaches. So I'm going to say this, it's not necessarily true, but we feel like we have more time than money, or more money than time, excuse me.
Right, right,
And
right.
so, despite the credit card debt being at an all time high, we feel like we can pay people to do it instead of doing it ourselves. And so, we delegate the coaching to a quote unquote professional coach because we don't have the time or the energy to do it, or we think we don't, when I'm just as busy and I'm coaching it. Like, that's different conversation. You were just as busy when you were coaching, but it's like there are so many things pulling for our attention. And then I'm going to throw another layer on this: the lack of third spaces in our culture today.
Yes,
For
yes.
those who don't know, third space means work space, one space, home is one space. Third space is another place to hang out and be around people. So what ends up happening is the travel team becomes the third
Third
space for mom and
space.
dad, and that's where your friends are.
Hmm.
So you start viewing your child's journey through sports through the lens of how it impacts your relationships. Because if they don't want to do this anymore, then you don't get to hang around your friends anymore.
That is so crazy, because before I coached, I went in and out of coaching. Well, I didn't coach my son the whole time. And one time I was on the bleachers with the moms, and I'm a single mom. And I homeschooled him. So this was definitely chatty mom time. And he was like, oh, did you see me catch that ball? And I was like, no. And he was like, I can't believe you weren't watching me. And I was like, dude, I'm not here for you. I'm talking to this is my social time. I've been with you all day. I know you can catch the ball. I mean, he wasn't like devastated or anything,
Right.
because I played with him all the time. But yeah, it was definitely my social time.
And that's what is this journey for your kids, or is it for you?
Right.
Or is the answer yes?
Right. Yeah.
And so, like, how do we balance that? And like, there, it's so youth sports and the journey through it, parenting looks so simplistic on the outside.
Hmm.
Then you get into it and you realize all the relational layers, you realize all the social layers, all the emotional layers, and it's like, no, this like
There's so
the
much
musical
to it.
theater world for you wasn't simple. There were
No.
layers upon layers that looking on the outside, like I'm going to see Hell's Kitchen in 2 days.
Yeah.
So like I love going to shows and seeing shows and
Yeah,
like
let's start with the basic issue of, why do I need mass adulation? Why do I need thousands of people clapping for me, right?
right.
But that's what
And
you have to look at when you're an actor.
so it's like all this stuff looks so simple. Like just go do it.
Yeah.
Just change.
Yeah.
Just deal with it. And it's like then you start realizing and you have a little bit of empathy because you start to understand all the different things for it. It's like, no, this is a lot more complex than I thought it was.
Yeah, I think the journey of travel sports that you explained, that was very enlightening for me because I am such a pain in the ass. I resist any marketing. Like if I feel like I'm being marketed to or lied to, you know? And so I just thought like, oh, people are falling for this like industry that's trying to make money off of you. And hearing you talk about the evolution, I can like, yeah, that's way more than I would have anticipated it looking like. And I do think like you're right. I think parents are just not seeing in the future where this fans out into. But
And
can we quickly talk about the scholarship D1 athlete, like the
yep.
whole, because I think a lot of parents do, this is a cover I hear all the time. Well, my kid's skilled and, you know, we're going to go for a scholarship. And I can tell you, number one, being a coach, like, you're not the best judge of your child's talents. Like, you have to listen to coaches because, like, parents would tell me all the time how great their kids were. And I was like, well, you know, they're playing.
So the number that gets thrown out a lot and is that 70% of kids quit sports by the time they're 13. There's some nuance to that if you want we can get into it, but let's just say 70% of
If
kids
you have
quit
time, we can
sports.
get into it. I'm not in a rush.
So there's some of the guys at Project Play have brought up some good questions about that stat because the latest data we have from the NFHS, I think it is, says that like 53% of high school kids play sports of some sort. So if 70% quit by the time they're 13,
The
how does
percentage.
how? So the thought process maybe, and we don't have the data to back it up right now, is that when kids are younger, they play a lot of sports, or ideally do. And so 70% of kids quit multiple sports by the time they're 13. They might still play,
Mm,
a decent amount might play. So let's say even 50% continue playing past 13. Let's just give
okay.
it that number. Um, we know kids quit between 13 and varsity athletics, but of the kids who play varsity athletics in the US, 6% of them will play in college at any level. That
Okay.
includes Division One, Division Two, Division Three, NAIA, or junior college. Only 2.5% of high school kids will go to get a Division One scholarship. And so when you break that
Is
down,
Division One the only scholarship? Is that what gives
so
you a
the
scholarship?
way it works is Division One. This is changing, so I'll try to make it simple. Division One's the only one that can give full athletic scholarships,
Okay.
which football, basketball, a couple other sports are 100% scholarships. The other ones, they're allowed to split them up. So in the current system, baseball only gets like 11.3 scholarships that they have to split over 35 kids. That is changing to where they're going to get 30 scholarships soon, if they can afford it, which is the big deal. But Division Two can give partial athletic scholarships,
Okay.
and so Division Two usually mixes together athletic and academic scholarships to get you as close to a full ride as possible. Division Three cannot give athletic aid; they can only give needs based and academic aid.
Okay.
So D1 is what you see on TV, and it's the one that pays for the most school. So 2.5% of varsity kids will go on to play Division One sports, and I can't remember the exact number. At least a third of those kids do not play all 4 years
Okay.
because what people don't realize is that a scholarship in college is a 1 year contract. So it is not a 4 year guarantee. Once you get there, you still have to perform. So if you get there and you don't pan out, or you get there and you get hurt, or you get there and one of 100 other things, your scholarship can get pulled at the end of any year. And so with the transfer portal in college, we're now seeing more and more kids admitting to getting cut. It used to be that was just a thing that you didn't say out loud.
Right.
But because colleges can go out and just get new transfers every year, if they don't like you or you're not working out, you're out, and your scholarship is gone, and you got to try to find a spot somewhere else.
So that it's not likely that your kid is going to have a scholarship.
No, so here's the example I give you. There was an ECNL soccer program in Colorado. ECNL is one of the top tier travel soccer teams or soccer leagues, excuse me. Uh, they put a thing out on Twitter that said they were celebrating their seniors. X amount of kids got scholarships for Y amount of dollars. When you do the math, it came out to $11,000 scholarships per kid. Well, their program is $7,500 per year. And they say on their website, families should expect to spend $1,000 per national game weekend where they have to travel. So chances are they were spending more than $11,000 per year to play when the average kid only got $11,000 on a 1-year contract. So they probably spent $40,000 to $50,000 over the kid's high school career to get on average an $11,000 scholarship. That could only be 1 year.
Potentially, if you're acting out of your own wounds or whatever, and you're pressurizing your kid, you could wreck your relationship, not get the scholarship.
There are kids that get to college every year and they don't want to be there. If you talk to any college coach, they can tell you within a week the kids who were pressured to play the sport from mom and dad, who don't really love it, they just happen to be good, and mom and dad, like, every college coach has examples of that. And so what I tell people is, if you want to play in college because you're motivated to be the best you can be and go up against the best competition, chase it. Yeah. Do what you can to provide that opportunity. If you want to play in college because of the financial benefit, put that money in a 529 and save your stress, because the chances are you're going to spend more money chasing the scholarship than you're going to get in the scholarship.
And I've literally heard that from parents. I've invested enough money, like, they better win, and I was like, whoa, our kids don't.
Then you start seeing your kid's journey as an investment in athletics.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I had a DM from a parent yesterday. My kid is 10. They play XYZ, all these sports. Lacrosse was their most. They came to me this week and said that they don't want to play lacrosse anymore. And I don't know if I should let them quit because we've invested so much money in lacrosse. I was like, they're 10. They might need a break. You're just as likely to burn them out if you make them keep playing than you are that they turn into something and love the game. So give them a break and reframe it as, you invested in the human. That money was not invested in lacrosse. That money was invested in human development.
Yeah.
And if we look at these sports as we're raising kids who have every tool they need to have success in life, then the winning stops being important. We want to win. We're going to try to win. But like, my kid losing or being disappointed or not getting picked for this team, that's just a part of life. And we got to help them through that disappointment. And we've got to help them. I believe sports are one of the safest places for kids to fail and to experience all these hard things that help them build resilience.
Not anymore. I had 12-year-old boys, 13-year-old boys crying, having tantrums when they struck out because their parents were putting so much pressure on these kids. And I was like, you're not Derek Jeter here. Like, you can.
That's because of what parents have turned it into, not because of what it is. When we approach it the right way, in a healthy way, then having a bad game just means you had a bad game. What are we going to learn from it? Are we going to let it motivate us to work harder, to get better? Are we, like, Kobe Bryant has this old quote where he said, there's no such thing as learning, there's winning, or excuse me, there's no such thing as losing. There's winning and learning.
Yeah.
And if we frame it as that, then it takes all the pressure off of this, because we see, like, our goal is healthy adults. They're going to have to go through some crap to get there. We got to lead them through that. It's like, no one's going to remember all the trophies from 8U baseball.
Yeah. I'll tell you a funny story. My son had one season where he never struck out, hit every single time. And what happened through the season, I swear he gave himself an ulcer. I'm very not pressure. But every game it got worse, because is this going to be the game and he ended up doing the season without striking out. The next season, I said, I need you to strike out on purpose. Get it out of the way. Yeah. Strike out on purpose, because that ate you alive last season, and that is not worth it. Just do it. Fail faster.
Yeah. I mean, We just have to have the right perspective on it. And it's really hard to get there, but it's absolutely worth getting there.
Can I ask you a question on that? Okay, so I hear, and this is just out of the blue, the last couple of months, 6, 7, and 8-year-olds. Parents are concerned that they're not paying enough attention to their sport. They are not practicing outside of practice. They're not doing drills at home when I ask them to. They're not. People are worried about balance. And I'm like, 6. Do they know how to ride a bike? Like, let's work there first, right? So, what would you say to parents who are, number one, really focused on specializing early, year-round specialization, one sport at that age, 6, 7, 8 years old, and how can they foster a better? I mean, I thought with Alyssa Liu winning and showing us what pure joy looked like, and doing it my way, I thought that would have broke through everything, but it seems like it only ended things off.
So I think the most powerful question you can ask is why? Why am I concerned about this? Then when you answer that, ask why again. Ask why 5 times. Like, why am I concerned my kid is not doing drills in the driveway at 8 years old? Figure out that answer. Okay, well, why is that an issue?
I just want her to be better. I just want her to be better.
Okay, so let's role play this, Jamie.
Yeah.
Okay, so your son is not hitting off a tee in the garage over the winter. Why does that bother you?
Because he wants to get better. He didn't hit any home runs last year, and he wanted to hit a home run. So,
does he want to get better?
He says he does.
Does he want to though? Does he know how? Does he know what it takes?
And, yeah. Well, he doesn't practice. So how do I motivate him?
You let him fail.
Yeah, but see, I already invested a lot of money in this. He's got a brand new glove. The travel team's expensive. So yeah, so we end up right back where.
So again, but the best motivation is intrinsic motivation.
Right. Internal.
And the only way we get motivated is intrinsically motivated is usually by experiences that we've had ourselves. And so okay, the example I like to use, there's a kid that graduated from my high school last year. He's now a Division II baseball player, top 10 Division II school in the country. He didn't make the team in 7th grade. And not making that team is what motivated him to start asking dad to hit him ground balls, go to the cage. And so had dad made him do that, probably wouldn't have got there. Maybe.
So that's what I think too, is that, so that's a big question that comes up for a lot of parents is, when do my kid wants to quit, but when do we think they're just being, because now we're fighting against video games, we're fighting against all these other things, or kids, potentially there are kids who are just too soft because of various reasons, right? So when do you want to quit? And I say my kid was in gymnastics when he was 5, is just an activity, and the coaches said he was good. I couldn't gauge that, they said he was very coachable. They asked him to be on the team at 6 years old. That meant 2 2-hour practices, then a meet on Saturday. It was a lot. And he was in kindergarten and he liked it, but every time we had to go, and then after he'd be really proud of himself. So I didn't know if he wanted to quit. Then he starts Little League proper. One day it's thunder and lightning, sheets of rain. You can't even see out the window. And he said, I do not understand why there's not practice. My bag is ready. We could play in this rain. This isn't a problem. And I was like, quit gymnastics. Like, it was clear to me he was passionate about baseball. So how do you know when you need to just a little more pushing, or let them just?
So I'm a big advocate, especially in those elementary ages. Set the standards and give the kids choices. So I call it the sandbox theory. So you build the walls of the sandbox, then you let them make their choices inside of it. So in our house, one of the walls of the sandbox is that you will be doing some type of physical activity every season. And so I don't care what you play, but we're going to be doing something physically active outside of school every season. And so my kids have chose soccer. My daughter chose dance. My son didn't like basketball a ton, but he had a bad experience. So I was actually going to force him to play this year because I didn't want him to end on a bad experience. Daddy, you said you never made me sport. You never forced me to play a sport. I did say that, but I think you will enjoy this. And I think as much as you enjoy this at home, you just need a better experience. And when he got in and played, he was going to, but our practice was going to be at 8:00 on a Friday night, and that was too late for him. So we'll try again next year. But this summer, we're making our kids do swim team, local neighborhood swim team, and they're fighting us tooth and nail. They don't want to do it. And again, they come back, Daddy, you said you would never make us do a sport we didn't want to. I did say that, but part of this is safety. I want you guys to be really good swimmers so that you can be like, I don't care if you don't even have to compete in the swim meets. I just want you to spend a summer learning how to swim really good. They're decent swimmers now, but because in case you're ever around water, but also it's either that or track club, and you guys didn't like track club last year. So this is what we're going to do. And if you do it and you don't like it, we never have to do it again. So it sounds like a cop out, but I think having open lines of communication and creating place, kids are smarter than we give them credit for, even in these younger ages. Like when my daughter said she wanted to quit soccer originally at 8 years old, okay, well, that sounds weird. She enjoyed it. We gave it a little bit. Well, why do you want to quit soccer, kiddo? I don't like playing with the boys anymore because we're co-ed.
Mm-hmm.
But with that, we can fix that.
Mm-hmm.
So we worked together to start a girls' recreation team with another league, and so she's been playing soccer ever since. A couple years later, I want to quit. Well, why? I'm tired of getting yelled at. And
so it's being curious. It's communicating
it's
and
being
curious as to why they want to quit.
So I asked her. I remember sitting in her bed one night, and I'm like, kiddo, I think you would really enjoy playing soccer. I do. I just don't think you care how good you are. I don't. I think you just want to play with your friends. Yeah. And at 9 years old, I was okay with it. I'm like, what if there were some girls we go to church with, they were on a team, and like, what if we could get you on Coach Nikki's team? And it's about 25, 30-minute drive to their practice, but you could play with the girls from church that you're friends with. Would you be? Yeah. And so she got excited about that. She went and played on that team last spring. They won one game all year. They were not good, but she had a blast in practice.
That's awesome.
And her love of the game of soccer came back because she got to do it in a relational way, to the point that because she got to do that, she wanted to get more competitive. So she actually came back to her old team that she wanted to leave because it had gotten too competitive, and had a great fall. And as part of that, the local middle school girls team invited that team to be ball girls. She went to be a ball girl for the middle schoolers, got hit by the bug because those middle school girls brought her in and got her a t-shirt. And so now she wants to play in middle school next year. And so we're going into the spring season about to start coming up, and she asked to do some lessons to get ready for the spring season. So I had to go at her level. I saw 2 years ago how good my daughter could be. She's not going to be a world beater. She's going to be a varsity soccer player should she choose to get there. And she has the chance to be a starter at our high school and play and have a fun soccer career until she's 18. That's her potential. But I had to let her get there. And I've told her that. I was like, kiddo, I saw how good you can be, but it's got to be your choice.
Well, I like that you were curious and she knew, and that's cool. And so you would say if the child needs to be hyper externally motivated, if parents are saying, I need to motivate my kid, ask yourself why. And the next step is let them fail. If you think it's really about them getting good or getting better, let them fail. And if they're still not intrinsically motivated, then that's that. Like, can you make a super athlete? I mean, I know you can if you're in China and you're picked out at 5 years old and this is what you're going to do, but
you can if they have the genetic ability.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think you should. We've got too many stories of people dealing with mental health issues because mom and dad pushed so hard.
Yeah.
And my go-to phrase or a piece of advice is your kid is not ready for travel sports unless they're playing the game at home on their own. If they're not asking you to do stuff with them in the driveway, in the backyard, they're not ready to go competitive. Stay in the rec league, enjoy it, have fun.
That's a really good rule of thumb.
Once your kid is like, and tell them that, because so much of these elementary age kids wanting to go play travel is because their buddies are doing it.
Yeah.
And it becomes a social system. And personally, I'm not investing that much time and money into a social club for elementary kids. We can do that other places.
Sure.
And so if you want to get competitive, if you want to challenge yourself, you're going to show me by doing the work at home. And then I will take you wherever you want to go, but you got to want to go there first. It can't be me wanting to get there for you.
And then what would you say? Because, like you said with your daughter, and she was motivated now because of the middle school. I love that. I could just see the school girls taking her in. What would you say? Now, she wants a few lessons off season. When does a few lessons off season become so much physicality that kids are getting injured at 12, 13 years old because with from repetitive use? So what is a few things off season to help keep up the skills as opposed to all these clinics? Like, I again, my world is baseball, so I'm just watching kids play baseball all year round and then not having a rotator cuff come 13 years old.
So the general rule of thumb from doctors is you shouldn't be participating in your sport more hours per week than you are years old. So an 8-year-old should not be spending 9 hours in their sport.
Okay.
They also suggest 2 to 3 months away from the sport per year, with 6 weeks of that being in one continuous stretch.
Okay.
So you can play 9 or 10 months a year, but you need to have at least a 6 week break at some point, and ideally 2 6 week breaks throughout the year, just to give your body some rest. And then the other piece of it is, as you're getting into those puberty years, um, that's really when it starts getting important to do some strength training and some performance training. We used to think that kids shouldn't lift weights until they're
I
14.
know.
The science and data shows us that as long as they're doing it in a controlled environment, they can do it younger than that. But even so, those puberty years are not necessarily for trying to get big and strong. It's for setting the foundation and um, learning how to move well and full range of motion. And so you're
That's what
doing
I
a
was
lot of
thinking for
body.
your kids for swimming is like
Yeah,
just an adjunct of like
yeah.
full body, yeah,
So
non-impact.
you're doing range of motion. You're doing that type of stuff so that you're just building athletic ability. That's why gymnastics was so good for your son. But until after puberty, don't worry about the big and strong. But like, if you're a volleyball player, like volleyball and baseball are here. If you're not
Yeah.
watching, it's a shoulder above your head. So if you're not training your shoulder and trying to strengthen your shoulder, it can't handle the load. So if you're doing all this throwing or hitting in volleyball, but not doing any strength training, your kid's going to get hurt. So they would be better off taking 2 to 3 hours per week away from the skills training and adding in strength training there, as opposed to only doing strength training. So it gets to be this balance of practice versus weight training versus games. And then you add in school. And so, like, if you're really going to do it right, it's a really hard balance to do it all.
Yeah. It's a
And
full-time job, it
it's
sounds
going to be
like.
very time consuming.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Well, I am so happy to hear about your podcast. So I will definitely turn people there and I will listen as well. So all answers will be there, I'm sure. So, Jonathan, thank you so much for being here. This is
Thanks for
such a
having me. I
great
appreciate it.
conversation. Yeah. So important that parents look ahead and at least try to plan this a little bit, not just throw their kids to the wolves.
Correct. Think about it for about 5 minutes at least.
Yeah. And ask yourself why and get curious. If your kid's resistant, yeah, be curious about that too. All right.
Yep,
Thanks,
absolutely.
guys. As
Thank you.
always, rock on, put your phone down.